Hello, today we are going to analyze how to crack MCQ exams, for example KCET or MCQ or JEE or any other competitive exam with little knowledge or with a competitive or descriptive or short study. So let's try to understand what basically is these exams and how to crack that. Okay. First I am trying to analyze what is MCQ. So you have multiple choices. You have choice number 1, choice number 2, choice number 3, choice number 4. You have 4 choices. First you need to understand that MCQs basically are set to equally divide all the answers. So let's say you have 80 questions. Out of 80, 20 questions will have answer 1, 20 questions will have answer 2, 20 questions will have answer 3, and 20 will have 4. It may be not equally distributed. It may be plus or minus. Let's say this 20 can become plus or minus 20%. So it can be 16Q. Or at the max side it can be 24Q, which is belong to question A1. And then rest of the division will be remaining part of the question. So I hope you got the first part of the MCQ, multiple choice questions, and how the distribution of the answers or question or any computer or any expert will do. Because if you set only one as all the answers, or it is not equally distributed, then that is not the right judgment. If you go to the advanced exams and all, there you will have subjective question type also. But in general, majority of objective type questions, you will see this kind of distribution. Now let's go to next part of it. Okay. So first, after identifying that okay, all the questions are equally distributed answers, option 1, option 2, 3, 4, let's say 20, 20, 20, 20 for 80 questions. This is first our understood point. Now second point. So out of this, let's say MCQs, you need to first, this is first step, to remember that it is equally distributed answers or plus or minus 20% in that range. Now step number 2, step number 1, you identified that it is equally distributed answers, every option will be equally distributed or plus or minus 20% range in that, and other options also according to that set. Now second, step number 2. What will be the step number 2? Step number 2, you should understand that you have to first analyze which questions you know 100% or you have 100% guarantee that this is what is the option. Option identification. So identify questions which you are sure 100% that these are the options. Okay. So let's take example that out of 80, you identify 20 questions which you know that 100% options, let's say option 1 or option 2 or option 3, you know 100% that this is what is option for 20 questions. Now you are left with the 60 questions. 20 questions, 20 marks you already got. You know 100% that these are the options. Now how to address the remaining 60 questions answers which you don't know the answer. Okay. Now comes step number 3. Step number 3. You need to now imagine and try to understand the 4 options given. One option will be a correct answer. I call it this as a correct answer. Now the remaining questions or remaining options are not correct answers. So what is that it will be? So let's say you have question number 1. You have given, let's say, any different problem. Let's take example that one train is going with speed of x and then another train is going with speed of y, and then now find out relative velocity. So this is what is the question. Okay. Now first, even though you don't know what is the formula and what option is correct, what should you do? What you should do, you should apply DMAS rule. What you should do, you should try to divide whatever numbers are given. You try to divide either x by y or y by x, and then try to find out if any of the options is matching. You should try to multiply x into y and see if any of the option is matching. You should try to add options and see. You should try to subtract and see if any option is matching. Now with this also, if it is not happening, then go to step number 4. Now what is step number 4? With applying DMAS also, you find that none of the options are. Now what do? You select this easiest option available. Let's take example that in the options I find that the option is 0. Please select 0 as the option that most probably the easiest, 0 or 1, let's say. Most probably the option where it is the easiest, 0 and 1 without any calculation method, that might be the true answer. So please go and select that option. Okay. So you are already past step number 4. I hope you will get maybe 10 or 20 in that range questions answered with this. So you got 40. So you are already 50% questions you have answered well. Now what is the next step you can do? So now the step number 5. So step number 5, you should understand out of all the given options, which option seems to be totally different. Okay, you should visualize, or you should see option 1, option 2, 3, 4 and differentiate with your visual eyes. Differentiate visually which option. Differentiate visually which option seems to be totally different from all the rest of the 3. Okay, what do I mean by differentiate visually? Okay. Differentiate visually, what I mean by that, let's say option 1, 2, 3, 4. What I mean by differentiate visually is, you have option where the statement here is, let's say, till this time, till this, and fourth line is going this till here. This is what I mean by visual differentiation. One line goes beyond all the 3. That is one differentiation. Second, you see that are using that Q is greater than C. Q is greater than C. Then here something is mentioned, let's say, and only one of the option is mentioned that Q is equal to C. So if I see differentiation, so I find that this option seems to be totally different from the rest of the option. So maybe the probability of this option to be correct is more. This is second. Now, there can be one more differentiation which we see. Majority of physics or chemistry options, that can be with the common sense. Let's say you have some question where it asks that, okay, whether this kind of, which gas is there, kind of, let's say. So it's a common sense that, okay, carbon dioxide gives some odor, or oxygen helps somewhere. So common sense daily usage type, you can easily think that which option can be correct, and you should use that common sense here to choose the option. Okay, use your common sense. Common sense is most useful when selecting MCQs. It is not most of the times most unrelevant or visually differentiated, or the answer most of the times is you can analyze using a common sense. So please use your common sense most of the times, or more than 80%, so that you choose the correct option. Now you have analyzed it using DMAs, you have differentiated visually, you have used the common sense. Okay, what is that next you can do to choose the correct answer? You should use 50-50 rule. What do I mean by 50-50 rule? Out of 4 options available, you should find out which 2 options you don't think it is there, and I delete those 2 options. Now I am left with only 50-50. So if I do not delete this 50-50, then I have 4 options left. So I have to somehow think and arrive at some logic where I find out 50-50, that option 1 and option 4 is probability of 50-50. Now option 2 and 3 is not at all possible, and I omit those options. What do I do now? The next step is using this 50-50. Now I have to use the step number 6. What is the step number 6? Once I identify 50-50 rule, what do I do next? I know that I have already written 20 questions which are available, which are correct answers. This is 100% my knowledge that this is 100% correct. Now with the probability theory or rest of the options or most easiest, I also understood that maybe 10 to 20% questions also may be correct. The chances that 80% it is correct is more. Now with all the rules of visual differentiation and DMAs, I find that majority of questions what are left out, maybe out of that, maybe 5 to 10. This may be 80% or more correct. So how much I am left with? So 35 questions minimum I answered correctly. Take that assumption. So I am left with now 45 questions. Sorry, 45 questions. 80 was the total count. 35 minimum I have correctly answered. Now 45 questions I am left with. Now as I told you in the beginning, you should remember that all the options entry or probability of having option 1 as an answer, it is equally distributed. So 25% will be option 1, 25% will be option 2, 25% will be 3 and 4. Now when you see this 35 questions answered correctly, now you have to distribute how many out of these 35 are option 1. Out of these 35, how much option 2? Now if you realize that out of 35, 17 is option 1 and 17 is option 2, then you know probability that option 3 and 4 is the most remaining options, and now you know that you have probability of 50-50, 1 and 4 only remaining. So go ahead and choose option number 4. That will be the most accurate answer. So I hope this video helps you to crack all the objective type or very difficult questions. Even though this helps you to just have your common sense or use some techniques to solve, but basic knowledge is must, and then without basic knowledge you may not be able to crack even though these techniques are used. Assume where you can go wrong. First thing, even though you know that equally distributed answers are there, but remember step number 2, you need to know 100% options correct identification. Until you pass this stage that few options or few questions are 100% correct, you will not be able to use the follow-on steps number 3, steps number 4, step number 5, step number 6. You will not be able to use those steps until your minimum basic knowledge to answer the questions is correct. So if your minimum basic knowledge to answer the question is more than 50%, let's say out of 80, you are able to answer 40 questions as the correct answer, I am sure this technique will help you to realize that remaining answers with this technique easily you can answer it and you will be able to crack more than 80%. That is what is my suggestion, or I'm not exactly telling that you may be able to 100% crack more than 80%, but to some extent with these techniques you will be able to crack that exam easily and you may be in the top list. So where you can easily get admissions to, maybe it is engineering or medical, you'll be able to get that admission. So remember, I will note down again. So
Start.
Okay, so I come back to my last portion. So what is step number 1? Step number 1 is to identify questions which you know are 100%, you know correct option. Step number 2, you need to understand or realize what is the easiest option available. If you have any zeros or 1, let's say in the angle, let's say you have 45 degree, 90 degree, the most easiest or the obvious answer will be this. That is step number 2. Now step number 3. So you need to visually differentiate what is the difference. So whether the length of the answer option is more or any one option is totally different, that may be the right option. That is visual differentiation. Now step number 4. So here I missed one step. So step number 2 was actually here. So which you should realize that all the options are equal distribution. What I mean is 25% is option 1, 25% is option 2, and option 3 is 25% and remaining is option. So plus or minus 20% can be deviation, but in most of the competitive exams you will find equal distribution. Then option 3 goes to identifying the most easiest. Then option 4 is to find out the visual differentiation. What is the difference between different options? Then step number 5 is use DMAS rule, that you multiply, divide, multiply, add, subtract with the existing data and try to find out whether you get any option and choose that. Now step number 6, you use rule 50-50. You omit 2 options which are not at all possible, and using common sense you know that this is impossible to get this option. Maybe it is daily life usage, or maybe through some knowledge, or you might have heard from someone, and that is how you have to gather all the information and then make sure that you use rule 50-50 and omit any 2 options. Now step number 7 is, after you have used rule 50-50, you are left with only 2 options, and then now you go back and count that whatever options you have correctly answered using all the step 6, let's say till step 6, what is the probability of options? Now you count each option. Option number 1, how many options are there? Option number 1, 2, 3, 4, and what percentage it owns. Let's say this is only 10%, this is 25%, and this is, let's say, around 15%. Now you will come to know that option number 4 is not at all used. So now most probably the rule number 50-50 will give you now the options which you are left with 50-50. Option number 4 is the remaining option, and you should tick on that. So again I will reiterate that all these techniques, whatever I have listed it down here, the most prominent and most understanding on most important basic is that step number 2, you identify the questions which you know 100% that this option is the correct option. And to get to step number 1, you should have a very good basic knowledge and thorough analysis. And without the probability, how much percentage this correct option entry you do, the remaining options you can easily, with step 2 to step 7, you can answer. But if your step 1 fails to answer correct options less than 20% or less than 15 or 10%, then these techniques will not help you. So basically knowledge is the must. Your basic knowledge is important. And then if let's say the probability of 100% correct option you know, if it goes beyond 25%, and then if it reaches 50%, your probability of getting the steps 2 to step 7, that you enter the options and you get to a very good mass scoring, is very good. So I hope I came to the end of this session, how to crack the MCQ exams, KCET or any other competitive exam, what techniques you can use in order to make sure that this is you can get the maximum out of your knowledge. I will reiterate again, your step number 1, where your basic knowledge and your analysis or what a study you have done, that is most important. The minute you cross more than 50% in step number 1, the probability of this technique step number 2 to step number 7 will help you more, probability is much better than the case where the step number 1 you don't know which is the correct option. So I hope this video helps you. Thank you so much for watching this video.